Hey guys, I want to spend a couple minutes just going over what our schedule looks like, what our daily rhythm looks like, and it is very different now than it was when I first started homeschooling, and I think it's just going to continue to change as time goes on. It has certainly changed from when I had it all planned out just a couple of months ago in the summer, but I want to tell you what has changed and why that's made such an impact on my schedule. I came across some new ideas and some new programs that are really inspiring to me, and specifically well-educated heart stuff that I feel like I can incorporate more of that, and I can just really feel really good about our educational journey. So here's the thing with Well-Educated Heart. I came across this philosophy, which is really simply put, the philosophy is that you teach children's heart through music and I'm trying to think all of them. Music, poetry, a story, and nature. That's not it. I don't remember. But you teach them through these heart languages before you try to teach them the head things. Now, she's not against teaching things like reading, writing, math, but she definitely, the focus of Well-Educated Heart is being able to teach us how to teach inspiring things and inspiring ways, and so it's focused on these other areas. I have incorporated a lot of Well-Educated Heart stuff over the years, and I just do it different every single year. So here's what happened this year. Two things happened. She started the Well-Educated Heart Academy, and that is for the older kids. That is for my kids who are in high school at that point, their educational journey. And then she also started something called Bellum at Home, which is for the little kids, which is much more focused on having teachers online that help you do things that maybe you're not naturally good at, like cooking and art and crafts. Oh my goodness, the crafts. And I don't think she has anything for science, although I would love it if she did. But that was Bellum at Home. And so I came across these two ideas at the same time, and I just thought, I really would love the Nat and Fizz for my oldest son. He really loves a lot of things when it comes to science, and I want him to be able to have this experience. And even though I love a Nat and Fizz as well, I feel like I don't have the time or the energy to be able to really mentor him through that. And so having somebody else who provides that style of learning, you know, that love of learning and that awareness that everything interconnects with everything else, and letting the kids kind of lead the interest, not the content. He's bringing content, but you know, as the kids ask questions, he's just been really, really good to answer those questions and work with them, and he's just an excellent, excellent teacher. And so I was very happy to have my oldest join that. But in addition to that, I came across this Bellum at Home, and it's not something that I feel like we need to be doing right now, but some of the things that I learned from watching it, I have decided to incorporate. So how we're incorporating this is I replaced the inspiration loop entirely, and I'm just going to walk through my day with just my little kids, because my big kid, I will just tell you what his schedule is. He joins us just for the morning thing, and part of that morning thing is he tells me what his schedule is going to be for the day, and then he just goes and he does his own thing. And so he's really not involved in a lot of the things that I do when it comes to specifically mentoring my kids. So this is for the kids. My kids are 8 years old to 13 years old at this point. So the first thing that we do is just kind of a devotional. This is over breakfast. I don't know that this is the best thing. I think maybe it would be better if you could just eat breakfast without trying to do additional things, but we can't. We're just trying to get a lot of stuff crammed in. So what we do is while we're eating breakfast, we will read scriptures as a family. We will tell a story about our family life, our adventures growing up, or their adventures as they were growing up or whatever, just to kind of keep track of who we are as a family and what makes us us. So we tell one of those stories, and we have prayers. So that is the devotional every single morning. And then after the devotional, we have a quick little planning moment. It's not a meeting, it's just, what are we doing today? And this is where my oldest son especially says, this is what I'm planning on doing this day so that I can get it all done this week, or whatever his time frame is that he's working with. And then my 13-year-old is at a point where he's on what's called the practice scholar phase, where he's thinking about becoming a scholar, but he's not quite ready to take that plunge. And so every week he's going to have an opportunity to look at it and say, I want to do a program called TJED High, which is, there are some videos and there's a lot of classics that they read, and then they'll have discussions. And he can choose to do that. If it happens to be a book he's interested in that week, I think he'll go that way. If he doesn't want to do that, he just says, well, this week I'm going to stay with the family learning and I'll stay with you guys. And so he's really straddling that line. And in the morning at the end of breakfast, that's when he will make his declaration. I've looked through this week's stuff, or I've looked through this day's stuff, and I've decided that I'd rather be doing family learning, or I would rather go do TJED High. Completely up to him. He can do it however he wants to do it. As many days he wants to flip-flop, as you know, it's up to him. This practice scholar time is the time for him to just kind of test it out and say, well, how do I feel about reading for many, many hours a day? And I think he's going to do great, but he just gets to decide how he's going to do it based on his own personal interest. And then eventually he'll naturally move into that, wanting to be more independent in his own learning. And then I have 2 little kids, and they are definitely staying with me all day. So during that morning meeting or morning minute where we say what we're going to do, I will basically tell them, hey, this is what we're focusing on today in the morning. And just FYI, because they don't really get to say exactly what they're not to the choice part yet. And so at that point, we actually have a little bit of a break at that point, and I finish cleaning the kitchen and they finish their chores, and we officially start our school right at 9 o'clock. Around 9 o'clock, we aim for 9 o'clock. And that's when we do Bellum. First thing in the morning, I have replaced most of our opener, and we've put Bellum in there instead. So we will still do the song, the prayer, the presentations, where everybody has a chance to say what's big in their life and what's important to them, and then we jump right into Bellum stuff. And so I don't know which day we're going to do each of these things, but one day will be arts and crafts, one day will be music and dance, one day will be poetry, cooking, games, that kind of stuff, and one day will be storytelling. So I think I'll probably make another video where I go into depth of all of the resources that I'm going to be using for each of these things, because I don't want to blow your mind right now. But I also think that it's important to understand that Bellum is going to take a chunk of time, right? So if we start at 9, we're not going to be done with Bellum, with this arts and crafts or music and dance or whatever we're doing, until maybe 10:15, 10:30. It's going to be a chunk of time. And so mentally, this is important for me to be able to say the inspiration loop only took 20 minutes or so. This is something else entirely. This is something that has a lot of hands-on, a lot of busyness in it. It's going to be a big part of their morning. And then after we've done Bellum, then we're going to move over and do the skills. So I had this mind-blowing moment just earlier in this month where I realized that there are really only a couple of categories of learning that we do in our homeschool. There is the inspiration stuff, which is Bellum. Then we do what's called skills learning, and that's reading, writing, math. There are only 3 skills, and skills are taught differently than inspiration. You know, skills aren't, let me spread some potpourri around and don't you feel so wonderful and don't you know how to read? No, when it comes to skills, you have to sit down and teach them, okay, these are the letters and this is how you write them and this is how you sound them out and this is how they form words and this is how they form sentences. Skills take coaching. They take one-on-one activity or one-on-a-couple activity where you are actually walking them through the steps of learning that skill, but there aren't very many skills. And so we do not spend very much time doing skills learning. And I think a lot of things are taught as if they're skills when they're not skilled learning. They're not something that needs to be taught this and then this and then this. You know, here is the state flower and then here is the state bird and then here is the state color and you must learn it in this order and then we're going to test you on it. That is not required. I don't know if you guys can hear my kids in the background. I told them they didn't have to be quiet and they are taking me at my word. But what I learned is that there's the inspiration learning, there's the skills learning, and then there's what I'm calling the heart learning, because I just want to teach them in an exciting and passionate way without it being necessarily in a specific order or checking off boxes or working your way through a textbook. So the only things that we have sort of textbooks on are reading, writing, and math, and not reading because I don't have a textbook for reading. We just read books. We do have Math UC textbook used for math that's sort of working us through and making sure we understand each of the concepts before we move on to the next one. And writing, we have The Good and the Beautiful, and it again is teaching them and training them that it's not just that you do it, that it builds on itself, but it is something that needs to have a lot of repetition. That's what skills require. And so those 3 skills, reading, writing, and math, we just work through those skills really fast. So the next section of learning, the next type of teaching, I guess, is heart learning. And we're going to be covering US history, world history, constitution, and science using this style of teaching, which is it's not a huge difference from what I normally teach, but it does not use textbooks. It's mostly on the idea of we're going to go out and have great mentors and have great classics in each of these areas that I want to teach you from the point of view of this is exciting. I love science. This is really awesome. I really love history. We're going to go out and do a lot of things around these ideas that are exciting and fun and not necessarily checking off any boxes in a textbook. I am actually going to be making a bunch of videos on how I'm doing Constitution and on how I'm doing science so that you can not only see how it's done, but if you wanted to go on this journey with us, you are welcome to come along for the ride. So the last type of teaching is going to be, let's get out of the house and go do this. And so that means that twice every single month, we're going to go on a field trip. One of those field trips is going to be focused on the science part of the exciting learning, and the other one is going to be focused on either Constitution or history. They're really kind of working together. And so those field trips they used to be last year that I would do field trips that were just fun and we just went around and they weren't really connected to anything. This year, I'm having my field trips be much more tightly connected to what we're learning so that it just feels to me like I'm freeing up more time in my week, that instead of saying, well, I just only have 3 or 4 days of this week to get it all done. Now I feel like, well, we have that, but I know we're also going to count that field trip because it's a part of what we're learning in science or history. So those field trips are really built into the type of learning that we're doing. Every single year, I do things just a little bit differently, and I can see over the course of many years that I have really gone from really kind of a strict parent who, let's do things here, let's make sure we check everything off, to somebody who's much more excited about the actual process of learning, not only in myself, but in my kids. And I see that as I'm creating this plan, I see that I am no longer connected to textbooks hardly at all, and I'm so okay with that. I feel so happy knowing that this is a type of learning and a way of approaching learning that is exciting not only for me, but for my kids. Now, I'm not saying you have to do it this way, but if you do choose to do it this way, I hope that you have just a fabulous experience with it. You are doing really, really important things as a mom and as a dad, no matter how you choose to educate your kids. Being a parent really, really matters, and you're doing a much better job than you think you are. Keep it up, and I will see you on the next one.